Thank you, Karen, and thank you, IFAM, for having me here. It is a pleasure to be with all of you. I know many of you personally from all the years I've gone to IFAM and to other events around the world. I'm going to talk about branding basics, tips to create or enhance your brand message. We have a few objectives today, and one is to define the importance of branding as the main aspect of the strategy of any business, to explore the steps needed to build a brand, and we're going to have a final exercise, how to create a brand manifesto. So I want to say that I listened to Karen's presentation, and I was very, very impressed about all the overview she did of the market in the US. And I think I have to start by doing a recap for those of you who perhaps were not there, as I think it provides the basis for what I'm going to talk about. So as of July, retail sales have returned to pre-pandemic levels. However, the way people are shopping has changed. People are shopping more and more online. There is an increase of 25% on online shopping. Many retail stores are closing, for example, Barney's, JCPenney's, Neiman Marcus, Sur La Table, J. Crew, Pier 1 Imports. People are aiming to shop at independent retailers and makers and to artisans directly. Product categories have changed. People want products that make them feel safe. Examples: comfortable clothing, kitchen and garden supplies, products to improve the office at home. So from this big shift, and actually I think it's a big shift that it's not going back to how it was before. I think it's a shift that it's here to stay. We have a few concepts that are very, very important to understand, and it's branding and content are crucial. Branding is the anchor for content. It engages content with a sense of humor, content with a sense of hope, content with a sense of empathy, content with depth. And I put all of these different examples because it really depends on what your brand stands for, the type of content that you develop, and the type of tone and visuals and everything that goes with it. So let's start from the beginning. What is branding? Branding is a holistic approach. It's a holistic way to approach your business. It's a way to contextualize content and context. It's a strategic way to embrace your vision. It's a way to package value and values. It's a long-term way to visualize your everyday work. So there is a quote that I love, which is, branding is the tangible representation of a company's strategy. It is a way to distill the essence and communicate it efficiently to relevant audiences. So the most beautiful thing about branding is that it is a space in the head and heart of your customers. Their loyalty is your currency. Your brand is your fingerprint, your main asset and driving force of your business. I love this slide that actually plays a game on the code of products, and it's actually a brand is so unique to you as a creator, and in the case of folk art, it's something that it cannot not be copied or reproduced by anyone else. Something that I come across all the time is that, oh yes, I have a logo, and so I'm done with branding, so I now can move into marketing. That's actually not true. A brand is not a logo. That's super important to understand. The logo is the tip of the iceberg. There has to be a brand strategy to embrace all the different elements that actually are part of what a brand really is about. That has guidelines, it has symbols, it has visuals, it has different elements, it has different assets, it has templates. And then, from that, you create, it's like basically like your grocery basket. You can't make a good soup if you don't have the best of the best ingredients. So you have to really think about it as it's not just the spices, it's the entire bag of groceries that you have to think about. So a brand is the visual representation of a strategy, and something really basic but really interesting and important is to be able to express who you are. You need to know who you are. And I mean who you are as a brand. So this could become clear by answering these 5 questions. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Where are you doing it? And how are you doing it? I like very much how Karen emphasized in her presentation that these months that we've been in lockdowns and basically like rebooting all of our way of being in the world has really questioned us, the why, the purpose of why we do the things that we do. So something important, it's purpose. So actually the combination of passion, mission, profession, and vocation. And I think in folk art, all of these things come to mind. It's not really so much about the profit aspect of, although that is important, but it's basically the purpose. I mean, that thing that you would do even if you were not doing it for to make money. Like what wakes you up in the morning, what makes you inspired, what makes you hopeful about the world. So what you do matters, but why you do it matters even more. So I'm going to share with you a video.
Marcella, there's no sound on this. Marcella, there's no sound. Marcella? Marcela?
Sí, aquí estoy.
There's no sound on
Yes.
there's no sound on the video.
How strange. That's very strange. Let's see. I guess I don't know how to fix the sound in the video. Let's see what else I can do. You're not listening to anything? No?
No, we can't hear anything. No.
That's very strange. Let's see. Okay, so I guess the sound doesn't work. Okay, so I'll continue with the presentation. So strong brands have primarily one voice. What I'll do is I'll send you an email to all of you so you can watch the video after the talk, because it's a really good one. Strong brands have primarily one voice, and the voice could be the voice of the person behind it. And here I'm talking about, many of you who are the actual creators of the product and of the concepts themselves. The voice of the place of origin or provenance, the voice of the material or technique that you use, and the voice related to how the product is made, so process. The voice of the purpose behind it. One simple message should shine because too many ideas make it difficult for customers to connect. So I'm going to give you a few examples of brands that are doing it, in a good way, and especially, that I think have, remain relevant during the pandemic. So for example, Urban Zen always, talks about the designer. There's always mention of Donna Karan, of her activism, of the things that she cares about. Now with the whole, election season coming up, she's promoting, that people exercise their right to vote. So it's important that there is always like that concept and that idea that it's beyond just selling your products. And that is always expressed constantly in her social media, website, everywhere. Of course, the case of Eileen Fisher, a big company now, more like mainstream than niche, but a very relevant always message on the upcycling, on the sustainability aspect and all of that. I guess I'll skip the videos and then send you the videos after. Dosa, Christina Kim, a brand that, before used to be a fashion brand, now is more a conceptual brand, but, the way she communicates, and actually this is something to analyze, because she has no team doing that behind. It's just herself, her voice, and her voice as an artist now. So let me skip the video. I love the way Harris tweets always talks about the origin and about the provenance of the cloth, and how they have created this seal of excellence and this certificate of origin, where you have to have a loom in a house in a specific place in Scotland to be able to use the brand Harris tweet. So how, an umbrella brand that has been, it's a legend in the world of textiles, and it's something very, very traditional, keeps on that connection with the landscape and with the origin. And I think now that travel has been, delayed, because I'm not going to say deleted, but delayed, we have the chance to actually share our origin, the origin of the materials, of the processes, of even our daily lives, as we, embrace all of this new way of being in the world. I think Alabama Channing it's a great example of that, of how Natalie Channing is actually communicating the process that goes into making the clothing. A lot of times she'll talk about organic cotton, and then she'll explore the whole issue of like water and cotton and all of that. But she talks a lot about the technique of quilt making in Alabama, and constantly has this beautiful posts of like tools. So, to talk about process, I think brands would be, would be great to actually show what tools do you use, how those tools are different from, the tools of somebody doing it something similar somewhere else. She also shows the inside of the garments to actually show and express the craftsmanship behind it. I think that's also super important to convey in brand building now. The fact that things are handmade, and how the feeling and the hand is expressed visually, now that we're not able to go to a trade show or maybe to a shop or to IFAM to actually touch the products. Boiseau, it's a Japanese farm to closet brand, and I love how they have this connection of the earth, the process, the final product in very simple sequences, and how they tell that story over and over and over again. That's why when I told you the list of, you have to actually stand strongly for one element, which could be your origin, your process, your way, your reason for doing something, etc., etc. You just have to be very aware that you're not letting the other aspects of your brand aside. You have to embrace them, but just concentrate more on one, because people have short attention memory, and they like to perhaps focus on one. I love how they communicate that they're about indigo, for indigo, in many different ways, and that's a beautiful thing. Another artist that I love is Lauren Manoogian, and I love I'm going to read out loud how she described herself on her social media and website. I think it's, with words, you can do so many things related to how you build your brand. So Lauren Manoogian is a Brooklyn-based designer whose initial knitwear and accessories work has continually matured as a collection of intentional, ready-to-wear and evolving lifestyle pieces. With persistent and intuitively shaped development, a commitment to a maintained visible hand, and cohesive textural narratives, the brand's subtle existentialism has earned a loyal following since its inception in 2008. Natural material choices, along with a dedication to sustainable and sincere handcrafted production practices, inform each collection, composition, and highlight the designer's personal and deep knowledge of textile development from her time in the industry and Rhode Island School of Design Studies. So this is what I call the brand manifesto, and this is the exercise. I'm going to give you the tools to build up this exercise. This is one of the assets that you all need to build your brand. See how in this paragraph we get a feeling of where she's from, where she's based, what she cares about, what she studied. So in one paragraph, and it's actually very hard to actually synthesize and choose the right words and the right ingredients to actually convey, you know, your whole universe in one paragraph. But I think, you know, if there was one takeaway from this webinar, it would be brand manifesto. It's something you need to all have very sharp and very defined. Raw Mango is you know, a brand that I admire very much. Sanjay Garg has been reclaiming and redefining the sari, and that has made him one of the most successful, you know, artisanal brands in India, because it's actually taking just one item of clothing and just giving it a modern and actually looking at it from the eyes of an activist. So for example, he never would do photos as if he were like copying a magazine that is styled by people in New York. He'll do actually a photo shoot copying all old antique photos of India. So it's always very rooted and grounded in what India is about. So his way of communicating and his way of storytelling, it's actually as important, as relevant as the clothing that he sells. So it's a great example of brand building, and a great example of things to actually look of references of who's doing it right in the world. Texidors, it's a brand from Barcelona, and they work with people who have mental challenges and who are better if they get to do repetitive work. The way they talk about purpose is just, it's very poetic, it's very respectful, and it's really pure in the sense that they are giving, you know, an opportunity, but without like getting a medal for giving this opportunity. It's actually, they're thanking this you know, people, because they're it's like a joint venture, like they're working together and creating a community in which what they do heals their process, but it's also a job, and it's also something that gives them economic independence. So Texidors is another brand to watch. Norla Textiles, I had the opportunity to work on this project for a few years, and it's beautiful how they have created a beautiful Tibetan brand in a difficult cultural and political context. And what I mean is that the brands are, how to say, the brand is located in Tibetan autonomous region within China, which means every scarf leaves the facilities, you know, the atelier with a made in China. But what they have done is actually used and created an independence and a whole culture, Tibetan culture around it. So, you know, it's like, let's talk about culture, let's not talk about politics, let's talk about beauty, landscape, tradition. And it's a great example of brand building as well. So something important, the branding process never finishes. It's like basically similar to when, you know, you have a house, you're never done with the house. You don't say, I'm done, I'm finished. No, you always have something to fix, something to improve. So successful brands are not static, they're fluid and evolve without losing their DNA. Actually, the exercise that we're doing, it's actually to get to the core of the DNA. So logos themselves go in and out of fashion, from the minimal designs of the 60s to the logomania of the 90s to the varied expressions of today. The overall trend is hard to miss. Luxury isn't connoted with fussy extras. No nonsense boldness is the rule. Spartan solutions have been rampant in all areas of design, and this is a trend to be continued. So if you look at all the brands that I'm giving you examples, you know, the logos are not the thing to shine and to actually, it's more the story and the different layers. Another thing I come across all the time is like, but brands don't evolve, you know, I mean, look at Coca-Cola, look at many traditional brands, and you can see in this example, but this is not true. There are very subtle changes that actually, you know, become relevant as, you know, different lifestyle changes happen, and that's important to keep in mind. Of course, Lacoste, you know, it's a great example of brand evolution. um, I'm here showing you the before and after of many different luxury brands that actually, it's important to look at what they're doing, maybe sometimes to actually do the opposite. So that's interesting. That's another great brand I had an opportunity to work with. And when I started the project, it was called Magic Grace. And part of the brand evolution was actually to reclaim ownership of her own name and of her own identity as a designer who's, you know, her father is English and her mother is African. So she wanted to keep the identity and integrity of her mother within the brand. And her mother had these tattoos on her face. She was, I think, from Nigeria. So we kept the tattoos, you know, embracing her name as a you know, as a symbol of her mother's legacy. Now she evolved the brand and she kept the DNA of the brand in the symbolic aspect of the two tattoos. The tagline, something super important: passion made me do it. And it can be something super simple that comes actually after you define the brand manifesto. I think it becomes easier to define what you do and why you do it in one sentence. This is Norla, and this is you know, the brand from Tibet that I just shared with you. So this is the brand to the left that I created, and it was created for a purpose, which was to actually have a presence in the American and European market, and to be able to have, you know, a color palette that would be relevant for that audience, etc. Now the strategy for the brand has changed, and is more a China-based brand and a Tibetan-based brand with a, you know, a hotel that it's attached to it, and more of the Tibetan identity. So the brand evolution consisted in like taking the Tibetan name Norla and just using it in more simple and minimalist ways. Carla Fernandez, she goes to the folk art market. This is, you know, a brand evolution that she has done. This is the square root, which is the actually the symbol of what she has been using as the indigenous way of dressing, and that's where the essence of her brand, the DNA of her brand, using that square root and that very geometric way of cutting the garments, which is the pre-Hispanic way of doing it. And now she, during the pandemic, just launched a beautiful brand that it's inspired by one of the ruins near Oaxaca in Mitla. So it keeps the geometry. It becomes even more Mexican, more rooted in, you know, in her Mexicanness. And it has also, you know, the C and the F, which are, you know, the initials of her name. So a logo is one of the most important representations of a company. A logo serves as an artistic representation of the company, an association of the brand's essence, an indication of a change in direction, and a symbol for its present and future potential. So this is actually one of the most important logos in the history of graphic design and branding. And it's by Milton Glaser. And what he did, he actually, the one you see on the left, he did it in a taxi, in the back of a taxi in New York. And it was actually a part of an ad campaign to boost the image of New York as a place that, you know, it's in your heart and it's safe and everything. And then there has been, you know, different incarnations. For example, this is the evolution of the logo when the 9/11 happened. Then, you know, the little detail here of like, you know, the heart burning and everything. Unfortunately, he passed away during the pandemic a few months back, and he was actually working on a logo to represent what we are all going through, you know, in this I guess, time that it's happening. And I find it absolutely beautiful what he was working on. And he said, I don't have any predictions about the future. I don't know what is happening, what will happen. I don't understand. I just know that we are together in this. And I think this resonates a lot with me and with the way I see everything that's happening. So logos can be serif or sans serif, typography, primarily visual, but it's not about mimicking trends. I mean, don't think about it as, let's see what's the trend in logos. It's about finding a timeless and enduring form of value, current yet classic, unique and specially worth it. So that's actually important. More brand evolutions from luxury brands, so you can take a look at what's happening. So typographic logos are tricky things. They can communicate trust or chaos, make you look smart or clueless, and come across as expensive or cheap. If the name belongs to a company that stands for heritage and quality, getting this right is serious business. So a brand has to communicate value according to its uniqueness. This is called the unique value proposition or unique selling proposition, USP or USP or UVP. How you define and communicate value is very much linked to your definition of value and your pricing strategy. I had a beautiful video that I'm gonna send you. It's called The Parable of the Clockmaker. And it's actually, I'll tell a little bit what it is about. So there was a town clock that was broken and nobody was able to find it in this small village in France. So they called the guy who fixed the clockmaker, and he just banged once and then gave big bill of like, I don't know, £100, and it said price for banging the clock 10, price for knowing how and where to bang 90. So basically you have to understand value in those terms. What exactly is your value? What exactly is that actually, that unique idea that nobody else can do it? So if I do a job in 30 minutes, it's because I spent 10 years learning how to do that in 30 minutes. You owe me for the years, not the minutes. So it's very important to actually link the concept of branding to the value that you are providing. So here was the video. Okay. Price and discounting are not a luxury strategy. If consumers don't value what we sell because we don't value what we sell, we have killed desire. And if we're producing too much for long tail platforms and people who are not preparing to pay for it, we'll kill the planet. Forget about our business, game over. So, the issue of sustainability is also linked to pricing, and pricing is linked to branding. So, all of these, it's like a chain that you have to understand every single part of the chain to be able to move forward, in the world of folk art branding, I would say. Consumer habits are changing rapidly. Traditional luxury is part of the past. New luxury is here to stay in the form of independent niche brands that embrace the concerns and changes of the new different. This applies, actually, I think this is the perfect time for folk brands. I don't know if you're familiar with the report that the Craft Council of England released recently. And actually it said that craft is now mainstream, and this is actually happening more because of the pandemic, as people have had more time to distill what they own, to distill things that they perhaps want to learn, and to actually learn how to do things. So the whole do-it-yourself market, as Karen explained in her presentation, is really, really important now. So you probably have seen that, it's now more challenging to sell anything. We have to understand that this time is there is a different hierarchy of, or hierarchy of needs. Use what you have, borrow, swap, thrift, make, or buy. So buy is high up there. So you have to have a very good reason for someone to buy your product. You have to have a very strong brand, a very strong story, a very strong and unique communication strategy to actually make someone pull the trigger and actually buy your product. So independent niche brands are very relevant today because they redefine what it means to be a global citizen. Concepts such as north, south, east, west, past, present are reimagined by independent brands. So this is actually the time for folk art brands to be in the world of branding. So here is a chart of different brands that I love, and I'll do the email and send you the website so you can look at all of them. Escudo from Peru, Cara Larga from Mexico, Chinu, it's a beautiful, beautiful perfume brand from Mexico, and it's all about Mexican biodiversity. Bode from America, Raw Mango, Juli Renata from Mexico, Nore Arion from Morocco, Injiri, bringing the world of rural India, the invisible world of rural India to the contemporary fashion market. Raw Mango, Loto del Sur, skincare brand from Colombia, Honora from Mexico, Catarina Mina from Brazil, Topolina from Morocco, Alabama Channing from the United States. So all of them have different approaches to brand building and to storytelling, but they're all succeeding in their own way. So I think part of the exercise that I would encourage you all to do is actually see who's doing it right and how are they doing it right. What can you learn from that analysis and apply to you? So basically, we want to find the intersection between what the consumer wants, what the content we're giving, and the context. So who's the user? What captures their attention and elicits an engagement? Where do they engage and share? So you have to really analyze who's your customer? What would they like to know about you? What would they like to know about how you do something? I think it's important when you talk about brand building, and especially being a folk artist, to understand that the framework in which folk art exists, it's actually the framework of sustainability. So it is very likely that your customer, of course, reacts to the beauty of your product and reacts to, aesthetic aspects related to that. But the sustainability conversation has to be at the forefront, and that has many layers because, as we all know, it's a very big word. It has aspects of the planet, people, how you develop your value chain, what, for example, Natalie Channing was saying in a panel I moderated last week, that everything she produces, it's already been ordered, so there is no stock. So that's actually something I didn't know, and I was happy to learn that she has that approach to her production schedule. So you have to choose, actually from the whole, sustainability conversation, where are you strongest? So are you using natural materials? Are you reusing materials? Are you recycling? Are you giving proper payment and credit to your artisans? Are you paying your employees fairly? For example, I'd like to know in the pandemic, how, are you still paying your artisans? Like, I like to know as a customer, information about how you run your business as a folk artist. Are you promoting fair working conditions? Are you embracing diversity in the workplace? Are you working towards the preservation of culture? Are you sure you're not involved in cultural appropriation? So, all of these aspects are really, really important. And just, going back to the definitions, what are you doing to sustain your craft? Are you teaching somebody how to weave? Are you, what exactly is that unique? What is your unique take towards sustainability? So consumers are facing a growing desire to use their fashion choices to express their own style, self-image, and values. So that actually plays in favor of folk art and branding folk art. So here is the exercise, and it's actually it looks simple, but it's a tricky exercise because you really have to think about how, so it's actually a fill in the blank. So for audience, who searches, wants and needs, fill in your product name, what's your market category, what's your key benefit or unique selling or value proposition. It's unlike repeat the name of your product. So I don't know. I mean, tell me if you have any questions. I'm done with the talk. I just wanted to give you my contact information if you wanted to reach out. I have 1 week, very hands-on intensive courses happening from 21st of September, 1 week on crafting your brand, then from 28th of September to October 2nd, crafting your product, and from the 5th to the 9th of October, crafting your message. You can get information from selvage.org workshops or contacting me directly. And I'd like to open the floor for questions.